This video is going to focus on multi-step equations. So in order to get a single variable by itself, we're going to have to do multiple different algebraic concepts to get there. So before we look at some, let's do a little review of a couple important concepts to take with us as we continue the video. So let's review the distributive property. So if I'm looking at the distributive property, I take the outside number and I distribute it to everything inside. So negative 2 times 8x is negative 16x. Negative 2 times a negative 4, or subtraction of 4, is a positive 8. And because these are not like terms, I cannot put them together. The next one is 1/4 times x minus 5. So even though it's a fraction outside, I still distribute. So 1/4 times x is 1/4 x. 1/4 times a negative 5 is a negative 5/4. Or if you wrote that as 1 1/4, that would be the same. Or even 1.25. But again, that would be your final answer, just like that one, because they're not like terms. And the next one has a fraction outside. Or a decimal outside and a fraction inside. So we still distribute. So negative 4.2 times a negative 2 gives you a positive 8.4x. And then a negative 4.2 times a positive 3/8 gives you a negative 1.575. And again, they're not like terms, so we'll leave it at that. So just remember, distribute everything inside. Watch for your negative times negatives. Subtractions and negatives are interchangeable. The other important concept is combining like terms. So if I look at an expression that has multiple terms, I want to only put the like things with like things. So 12r can only go with anything else that has an r. So because there isn't, I can only combine my constants here. So negative 8 minus 12 gives you a negative 20. And that would be your final answer. The next one, I again have multiple terms. So n's can only go with other n's. So this is a 1n. So 1 minus the 5 gives you a negative 4, and then the like variable goes with it. My m's can also go together. So 4m minus 9m gives you a negative 5m, because 4 minus 9 is negative 5, or subtraction of 5. Remember that it's interchangeable. The third one is combining the distributive property and combining like terms, so we'll review that. So I have to distribute, because 9 minus 10n are not like terms, I can't put those together inside the parentheses. So that means I have to distribute the subtraction sign or negative sign to each of these. So this is a negative 1, so that's how I'll treat it when we multiply. So negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Negative 1 times a negative 10n gives you a positive 10n. So notice I just changed the signs of everything inside. Now that I distribute, I can still combine like terms in this step. So n's can only go with other n's. So negative 2 plus 10 gives you a positive 8, n minus the 9. Give me a little bit room for this last one. All right, this last one has two sets of parentheses, so we'll distribute them in the same step. So we'll distribute this negative 9 to the first, this positive 6 to the second. So negative 9 times 6 is 54m. Negative 9 times a negative 3 gives you a positive 27. And then roll right into the second. A positive 6 times 1 is a positive 6. A positive 6 times a positive 4m is a positive 24m. Now I combine the m's together. So 54 plus 24 is 78m. Apologize for that. And then 27 plus 6 would give me 33. Okay, so just a little review. We'll need that as we go forward. Okay, so if you'd like, go ahead and pause the video, kind of fill in what you need to for the steps. Once you have it all written down, hit play, and I'm going to talk through these steps a little bit. Okay, so step 1 is doing exactly what we just reviewed here. So we want to make sure when we're looking at an equation, we want to make sure that this stuff on the right is simplified, meaning if there's parentheses, I need to distribute. If there's like terms on that side, I need to put those together. And I would do the same thing for the left. So we want to simplify this right side. We want to simplify this left side before we move forward. That's what step 1 is telling you. We're going to come back to step 2 in a couple slides. So once I simplify the right and simplify the left, step 3 and 4 is looking at that two-step area. So step 3 is saying take this addition and subtraction and undo it. Then take this multiplication and division and undo it. So these two here are looking at that like two-step concept. So these next few examples, we're going to be looking at step 1 and then step 3 and 4. And of course 5, we can always check our answer. So let's look at a few examples. So the first thing I want to ask myself is, can I simplify the left side? Can I simplify the right side? So if I'm looking at this right side of the equation, can I simplify it? Can I distribute or combine like terms? And the answer is yes, I can combine like terms. There's an r here and an r here, so I can put those together. So if I have 1 r sitting here and 8 r's sitting there, that means I have 9 r's on that side of the equation all together. This constant of 11, I can't do anything with because there's no other like term on that side. If I look at this right side, I just have a 29, so there's nothing I can do on that right side of the equation. So once I took care of step 1 and simplified that left side, I'm now looking at a two-step equation. So I would subtract 11. And then I get 18 on the right, divide by 9, and I get 2. Not too bad. So let's look at the next one. Let's look at this left side, and I can simplify that. I have negative 10p's plus 9p's. Well, that's going to give me a negative 1p equals 12. So I'm not done because I don't want a negative p, I want a positive p. So I have to divide it by this negative 1, and that's going to give me a negative 12. Again, not too bad, but that's that idea of that step 1, simplifying both sides and then working towards that same concepts from the 1-step and 2-step equations. All right, a few more examples. So we'll just kind of gradually work and get a little tougher as we move on. So my left side is just 18, so I can't simplify that in any way. But now my right side I can. There's a set of parentheses, so I can distribute. So 3 times 3 is 9x. 3 times a negative 6 is a negative 18. So I can add this 18 now that I'm working on my 2 steps. 18 plus 18 is 36. equals, and then I'm just left with that 9x. Divide by the coefficient, and I get 4 equals x, or x equals 4. So this distribution up here, this step 1, is the new element here in this multi-steps. Once we do that step 1, then we're looking at a 2-step. Okay, again, on this equation on the right-hand side, my left is just negative 13. But now I can do some stuff with my right side. So first, let's distribute this. So 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 4m is 20m. Notice I'm not going to distribute the 5 to this negative 2m because it's not in the parentheses, so this minus 2m is just going to drop down. Now I can even actually do a whole nother step because I can combine these m's. So I have negative 13 equals 5. 20m minus 2m, that's going to give me a positive 18m. Now I can subtract the 5. 5 minus 5 is nothing. That gives me negative 18 equals 18m. Divide by the coefficient to get 1. Do the same thing over here, and I get negative 1. Alright, not too terrible. Let's look at a few more. So the 8 stays. Now for this one, I have a set of parentheses, but I can't do this first, so I have to do the distribution. Remember, we do multiplication before addition and subtraction versus the order of operations. So the 8v just stays put. Negative 4 times v is negative 4v. Negative 4 times a positive 8 is negative 32. I can do one more step on this right-hand side by combining these like terms. 8v minus 4v, v is 4v. Now I'm looking at a 2-step, so I can undo this subtraction and get 40, and then undo that coefficient by dividing by it and get 10. Good. And the last one here, we'll distribute first, so we get negative 6. Now a negative 6 times a negative 5v, that's going to change that to a positive, not 5v, it would be 30v. So a negative times a negative is positive. Now I can solve that 2-step. So we add 6, get 30v equals 60, divide by the coefficient, you get v equals 2. Good. The more you practice these, the better you'll get. Alright, so go ahead and pause and try these 4. Use the other examples and use the steps. Remember, we're just looking at that step 1, step 3, and 4 right now. Okay, let's run through the explanation. So we got 4x plus 6 plus 3 equals 17. So we'll combine the 6 and 3 first. So 4x plus 9 is what I would get as my first step. Then I can subtract the 9 to start taking it away from the x. 17 minus 9 is 8. Divide by the 4 to get rid of that coefficient, and I get 2. So I got x equals 2 for that first one. Alright, let's look at this next one. So this next one looks a little funny because there's a 0, but that's okay. We're not going to change our process. So 0 is simplified. But this negative 5n minus 2n, I can put those together. So negative 5 minus 2 is negative 7n. Now I still have to get n by itself, so I'm going to divide by the coefficient, just like I always would. But I'm still going to end up with 0 here. equals n. So it is okay to get a variable that has a solution of 0. Sometimes that throws us off a little bit. All right, the third one. So again, we get a little tougher as we move forward here, so hopefully you could get a good start on some of them. All right, so 30 stays. I can distribute on the right side. So negative 5 times 6n is negative 30n. Negative 5 times a positive 6 gives you a negative 30. So I can add this 30 and add to that 30. That gives you 60 equals negative 30n. Divide by the coefficient. Make sure you take the negative with it. And that gives you negative 2 equals n, or n equals negative 2. Okay, so on that one we had to distribute before we solved for that variable of n. All right, clear my screen. Okay, and this one. Okay, so we're going to distribute first. We're always going to do that distribution to get rid of the parentheses first. So that gives you 5x plus 30. Again, I'm not going to distribute to that minus 3 because it's not in the parentheses. Now before I can solve for x, I'm going to combine these like terms here. So 30 minus 3 is 27. Now I can start to undo my operations to get that variable by itself. Divide by the coefficient, and you get x equals 2 again. But again, hopefully you're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with these. The more practice that you do, the better you'll get. All right, and the last one. Okay. All right, again, we gotta do this distribution of negative 8. Make sure you took the negative with it. If you only took the 8, you might be off by a sign or something. So negative 8 times 1 is negative 8. Negative 8 times a positive 7 is negative 56n. Now I can combine my n terms. So negative 5 minus 56 is negative, what is that, 61? Yeah. N minus 8 equals negative 8. I'm going to add this 8, add 8. And what you notice here, so this might have got you might have been thrown a little bit. Well, negative 8 plus 8 is also, it also cancels, but I have to give it something on this right side of the equation. So I have to fill that in with a 0. So then I can divide by this negative 61. But again, I'm still going to end up with 0 as your answer. So just like the example we did together earlier, it is okay to have a solution of 0. Okay, so you already have this down in your notes earlier, but we are going to add this step 2 to the mix. So we're going to start looking at, well, what happens when we have variables on both sides? And that's what step 2 is saying. So we're still going to utilize step 1 first, simplify the right, simplify the left. Okay, so make sure everything's in simplest form. Then if I have a variable on both sides, I can then get them on the same side, then utilize step 3 and 4 as we did. So those are going to be these next few examples that we're going to look at. Okay, so let's look at this first one. All right, so we're still going to utilize step 1. So can we simplify the left side? Yes, we can. We can distribute. So 8 times 4x is 32k. I'm sorry, I said the wrong variable. 8 times negative 4 is also 32 again. So now I have something that is simplified on the left and simplified on the right. So 32k and 32 are not like terms because this 32 does not have a k with it. Okay, so I'm looking at something that is simplified. Now let's utilize step 2. So let's get that k to the one side. It does not matter if I take the 32k from the left to the right, or if I take the negative 5k from the right to the left. It does not matter. I'll give you some tricks. So if I'm looking at a positive 32k and a negative 5k, I would choose the negative all the time. And I would do that because the opposite of a negative or the opposite of subtraction is a positive. And we like positive numbers over negative numbers. So if I have a negative variable term, I'm going to take that to the other side. Now I notice that I have 32 plus 5, so it's going to keep that coefficient, not 8, 5, that's 7, but it's going to keep that coefficient positive. So now that I move that negative 5k over here to this 32k, that minus 32 drops, that negative 32 on the other side also drops. So now I'm looking at steps 3 and 4. I can add 32. I get 37k on the left, but then I also get 0 there. So again, divide by that 37, but you still end up with 0. All right, so this is what we're adding as we build this video through. Okay, let's do a couple more. All right, this second one. Okay, so let's simplify. So let's focus right here on this left side. So let's distribute. So that's 8 plus 40x, drop down the plus 5, drop down the equals, the 13 plus 5x. Now I'm still focusing on this left side because it's not quite simplified. I can combine this 8 plus 5. So 8 plus 5 gives me 13 plus 40x equals 13 plus 5x. So let's get the variable on the same side. So I have this positive 40x here, this positive 5x here. Okay, so like the last one I told you, if you had a negative, take that one because it'll change it to positive. But now I have both positive x terms. So what I would do is take the smaller of the number. And that trick's going to help because even though I'm going to subtract this 5x to get rid of it, when I come over here and subtract it, it's still going to leave my x term positive. So just a trick. And again, doing lots of examples where you're getting zeros because I want you to feel comfortable with that. Okay, so it's okay if you get a 0, just make sure you put it down. Okay. All right, last one together and then I'll give you some to try on your own. Okay, all right, so this one is our first one that has some work to do on both sides. So let's distribute here, but then notice I can also distribute on my right. So we can go ahead and just take care of all of that as we move forward in this first step. So negative 5 times 4x is negative 20x. Negative 5 times negative 2 is a positive 10. So watch those negatives again. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 2 times a positive 6 is negative 12. x. All right, so again, watch your negatives when you distribute, and if you have to distribute on both sides of the equation, we can just do it all in one step. Well, now I have nothing more to simplify on either side, so I can start to take things over. So I have this negative 20x and this negative 12x. Well, now I don't have two positives. I don't just have one negative, I have two negatives. So if we think about this, if I add 12x to bring it over here, I'm still going to end up with negative money, because if I have negative $20, or if I owe you $20 and I only have 12 to give you, I'm still negative. But if I add 20x to both sides, that's going to cancel it on the left. But now when I get over here to the right, negative 12 plus 20 is going to pull that positive. Now we'll add 6, get 16 equals 8x, divide by the coefficient, and get 2. Okay, so what I told you going through about which variable to take from what side to the other, those are just tricks. I like positive numbers just to keep my coefficient positive. It just helps so I don't lose a negative along the way. You don't have to use that trick. You can take any variable term from any side as long as you're doing the opposite operation. So why don't we try that yourself? So go ahead and pause it, give yourself plenty of time, work through all three, get as far as you can on all three, and then hit play and you can see the explanation. Okay, let's run through these. All right, so we'll distribute here. And that gives me a positive 64x and a positive 48. Okay, so I'm simplified. So I'm going to add this 6x. Again, I'm going to add it because it's going to give me this positive coefficient. Then I'm going to subtract this 48. 70x equals negative 70. Divide by the coefficient. So you should have came up with x equals negative 1. All right, so make sure you find your mistake. Maybe it was in your distribution. Maybe you didn't take the negative. You have your signs incorrect. You know, maybe you didn't do the opposite. Whatever it may be, but find your mistake and make sure you correct it. Alright, let's look at the next one. Negative 11 minus 5a equals 6 times 5a plus 4. So this time my distribution is on the right side. So that would have given you 30a plus 24. Now I'm going to add this 5a, again, just to keep mine positive. You didn't have to, but we should end up with the same answer. So that's 35a plus 24. Subtract the 24. I get negative 35 equals 35a. And again, divide by the coefficient. So here again, we get negative 1 as our answer. Okay. All right, and the last one. See how you did. This one had some double distribution and some combining like terms. So quite a few steps on this one. Give myself plenty of room to do the work. All All right, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute both of these in my first step. So that would have given you 10x plus 30 on the left. This would have given you a positive 20 plus 8x, and then drop that 3x down. So again, watch your negatives. I still have work to do on this right side because I can combine these. So that's going to be my next step. So 8x plus 3x gives me 11x. Now, I need to get my x's on the same side. So I'm going to subtract the 10x because it's going to keep this still positive. So that's going to give you 30 equals 20. 11 minus 10, that's just going to give me a 1x left. So you could write the 1 if you wanted to. Subtract the 20 to take that away. So you're ending up with 10 equals 1x, or x equals 10. Very good. All right, so again, that second part of this video is adding that what happens when I have a variable on the left and a variable on the right. Well, the answer to that is I have to get like terms on the same side in order to combine them. But in order to take something from one side of the equation to the other side of the equal sign, I have to make sure I'm doing the opposite operation. So if it's positive, I have to subtract it. If it's negative, I have to add it. So be careful of that.